The story of two Coati cubs and two human cubs. The original Spanish title, Historia de dos cachorros de Coati y de dos cachorros de hombre, by Horacio Quiroga. Once upon a time there was a Coati that had 3 children. They lived on the mountain, eating fruits, roots, and birds' eggs. They climbed trees, and if they heard a loud noise, they would jump to the ground head first and run around with their tails up in the air. One day, when the Coatis were a little older, their mother gathered them together in an orange tree and told them, "Little ones, you're old enough to go out looking for food on your own. You ought to learn how to do that, because when you're old, you'll always go out alone, like all the Coatis. The oldest of you, who is fond of hunting beetles, will find them by rotten sticks, where there are always many beetles and cockroaches. The second one of you, who likes so much to eat fruit, will find them in this orange plantation. There are oranges until December. The third of you, who only wants to eat birds' eggs, will be able to go anywhere because there are birds' nests everywhere. But don't ever go looking for nests in the countryside because it's dangerous. Little ones, there's only one thing of which you should be very frightened: the dogs. I fought with them once, and I know what I'm talking about. That's the reason I have a broken tooth. The men, making a great noise as they kill, always come behind the dogs. When you hear this noise nearby, throw yourselves to the ground. The tall trees will conceal you. If you don't, they'll surely kill you with a shot." So the mother told them. All left the tree and went their separate ways, walking right to left and left to right, as if they had forgotten something, this being the way Coatis walk. The oldest, who wanted to eat beetles, looked among the rotten sticks and the weeds, and found many, which he ate until he dropped off to sleep. The second, who preferred to eat anything else, ate as many oranges as he wanted, because the orange plantation was in the mountains, which pass through Paraguay and Misiones, and no man came to bother him. The third, who was crazy about birds' eggs, had to walk the whole day to find just 2 nests, one a toucan's with 3 eggs, and one a turtle dove's, which only had 2 eggs. In total, 5 small eggs, which was very little food. And as afternoon fell, the little Coati felt as hungry as he had that morning, and sat down sadly at the edge of the mountain. From there he saw the countryside and thought of the advice his mother had given him. "Why doesn't Mama want me to go looking for nests in the countryside?" he asked himself. He was thinking along with these words when he heard, far off, the song of a bird. "What a strong sound," he said admiringly. "That bird must have huge eggs." The bird sang again, and then the Coati ran through the mountains, taking shortcuts, because the song had sounded to the right. The sun was already setting, but the Coati ran with his tail raised. He arrived at the mountain border finally and looked at the countryside. Far off he saw a human house, and a man wearing boots guiding a horse by a rope. He also saw a very big bird singing, and then the Coati struck himself on the brow and said, "What a fool I am! Now I know what kind of bird that is. It's a rooster. One day Mama pointed one out to me from a tree. The roosters have a lovely song and have many offspring that produce eggs. If only I could eat one of the offspring's eggs." It is a fact that nothing tastes as good to the little wild animals of the mountains than these eggs. For a moment the little Coati remembered his mother's advice, but his hunger got the better of him, and he sat at the edge of the mountain, waiting for the onset of night to go to the hen house. Night fell at last, and then on tiptoe, and little by little, he made his way to the house. He arrived there and listened attentively. He could not hear the faintest sound. The little Coati beside himself with happiness because he was going to eat 100, 1,000, 2,000 eggs, entered the hen house, and the first thing he saw clearly from the doorway was an egg all by itself on the ground. For a moment he thought of leaving it to the end, for dessert, because it was very big. but his mouth began watering and he sunk his teeth in the egg. Scarcely had he bitten down than snap! He felt a terrible blow in the face and great pain in the snout. "Mama! Mama!" he cried, beside himself with pain, jumping all over the place. But he was caught, and in the same moment heard the deep bark of a dog. While the Coati had waited on the edge of the mountain for night to close in so that he could go to the hen house, the man of the house played on the lawn with his children, 2 blond creatures, one 5 years old, the other 7, who ran smiling, fell over, lifted themselves up, still smiling, and fell over again. The father fell too, caught up in the tremendous happiness of the children. They finished playing when night fell, and the man said, "I'm going to set the trap and try to catch the weasel that's been killing the chickens and stealing their eggs." He went to set the trap. Afterwards, they ate and went to bed. But the children did not sleep. They leapt from the bed to bed and got tangled up in their nightgowns. The father, who was reading in the dining room, let them do as they pleased. But the children suddenly ceased their frolicking and cried out, "Papa, the weasel's been caught in the trap. Duke's barking. We want to go and look, Papa." The father agreed, but only after the creatures put their sandals on. He never allowed them to go barefoot at night because of the vipers. They went. What did they see there? They saw their father, bent over, holding the dog with one hand, while the other he lifted a Coati by the tail, a little Coati, still young, that cried with a rapid, strident howl, like a cricket. "Papa, don't kill him," the children said. "He's tiny. Give him to us." "All right, I'll give him to you," the father replied. "But take good care of him, and above all, don't forget the Coatis drink water, just like you." He mentioned this because the children had at one time had a wild cat that they fed every so often with meat taken from the dinner pail, but they never gave him water, and he died. Consequently, they put the Coati in the same cage where they had kept the wild cat, near the hen house, and they all went back to bed. And after midnight, when it was very quiet, the Coati, who was in great pain because of the teeth of the trap, saw by the light of the moon 3 shadows approaching with great discretion. The little Coati's heart missed a beat when he recognized his mother and 2 brothers, who had come looking for him. "Mama, Mama," the prisoner murmured, in a voice kept very low so as not to make noise. "I'm here. Get me out of here. I don't want to stay here. Mama." And he cried inconsolably. But despite everything, they were all content because they had found him, and they gave each other 1,000 caresses in the snout. They attempted at once to free the prisoner. First they tried to cut the wire, and the 4 of them worked with their teeth but failed to get anywhere. Then an idea suddenly occurred to the mother, and she said, "Let's look for the man's tools. Men always have tools to cut iron. They're called files. They have 3 sides like the rattlesnakes. You push it one way and then pull it back. Let's look for it." They went to the man's workshop and returned with the file, believing that one of them alone would not have sufficient strength. All 3 had the file in place and began to work. And they worked with such enthusiasm that within a short time the whole cage shook with the blows and made a terrible sound. Soon such a noise that the dog awoke, letting fly with a deep bark. But the Coatis did not wait around for the dog to inquire of them the meaning of the scandal, and rushed off to the mountain, leaving the file on the ground. The next day the children went early to see their new house guest, who was very sad. "What will we call him?" the girl asked her brother. "I know," replied the boy. "Let's call him 17. "Why 17? Never had a wild animal had such a rare name. But the boy was beginning to count, and perhaps it was because that number appealed to him. 17 is what they called him. They gave him bread, grapes, chocolate, meat, locusts, eggs, delicious hen's eggs. In the space of one day he let them scratch him on the head. Such was the sincerity of the creature's affection that by nightfall the Coati was almost resigned to his captivity. He kept thinking about the delicious things there. There were to eat, and about how happy and good the man's little cubs were. On 2 successive nights, the dog slept so close to the cage that the prisoner's family, with great regret, did not dare go near it. When on the third night they arrived and went looking for the file again, so as to free the little Coati, he said to them, "Mamma, I no longer want to leave here. The children give me eggs and are very good to me. Today they told me that if I behave well, they'd let me free very soon. They're like us. They're little cubs too, and we play together." The wild Coatis felt sad, but they resigned themselves, promising the little Coati that they would come and see him every night. So every night, whether it rained or not, his mother and two brothers came to spend a moment with him. The little Coati passed bread to them through the wire, and the wild Coatis sat in front of the cage and ate. At the end of 15 days, the little Coati roamed free and returned to his cage at night on his own will. Besides having his ears pulled because he walked too close to the henhouse, all went well. He and the little creatures loved each other a great deal, and when they saw how good the man's little cubs were, they felt affection for them too. Until one very dark night, a night of great warmth and thunder, the wild Coatis called out to the little Coati, but received no response. They drew near with great unease, and then saw, just when they were about to tread on it, an enormous viper coiled at the cage entrance. The Coatis understood at once that the little Coati had been bitten on entering and had not responded to their call, possibly because he was already dead. But they avenged themselves well. In the space of a second, between the three of them, they drove the rattlesnake crazy, leaping from here to there, and in another second they fell upon her, tearing her apart with bites. Then they ran into the cage, and there was the little Coati, lying down, swollen, his legs shaking and dying. The wild Coatis moved him in vain. They licked him all over his body for a quarter of an hour in vain. The little Coati opened his mouth at last and stopped breathing, because he was dead. The Coatis are almost resistant, so it's said, to the viper's venom. The venom does practically nothing to them, and there are other animals like the mongoose that resist the viper's venom very well. Without a doubt, the little Coati had been bitten on an artery or vein, where the poison enters the blood at once, and the animal dies. This is what happened to the little Coati. Seeing him so, his mother and brothers cried many tears. Afterwards, because they had nothing more to do there, they left the cage and turned to look for one last time at the house where the little Coati had been so happy, and went back to the mountain. However, the three Coatis were very worried, and this was what worried them. What would the children say the following day, when they saw their beloved Coati dead? The children loved him very much, and they, the Coatis, also loved the blonde cubs. So the three Coatis had the same thought, this being to prevent the children from experiencing such sorrow. They had a long talk, and at the end decided on this. The second Coati, who was very much like the youngest in appearance and manner, went to live in the cage in place of the deceased. As they were well informed on the house's secrets, owing to what the little Coati had told them, the children would not know anything. At most, they would find some things a little odd. So it happened. They returned to the house, and a new little Coati replaced the first, while the mother and the other brother carried the youngest's cadaver in their teeth. They carried him slowly through the mountain, the head hanging, swinging, and the tail dragging along the ground. The next day the children, indeed, found some of the odd ways of the little Coati strange. But as this one was as good and affectionate as the other, the creatures did not have the least suspicion. They comprised the same family of cubs as before, and like before, the wild Coatis came to visit the tame little Coati night after night, and sat at his side and ate pieces of hard-boiled egg that he had kept for them, while they told him all about life in the forest.